Now you're okay.
All right, welcome again to the Impactathon. Before we get started with our amazing keynote speaker, we want to go ahead and invite Jeff up, and he's going to go ahead and talk to you about the awesome computer science degrees that you can get here at North.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Great.
Awesome. I feel like we should congratulate Rico and the rest of the team for putting on this event today. So much work. So excited to see what you guys come up with in the next 2 days. I'll be really brief. So hi everyone, my name is Jeff Eng. I'm the Outreach and Student Support Manager, and I oversee 2 of our bachelor's programs here at North. Show of hands, does anyone know that we have bachelor's programs here? Okay, about half, most of you. So I work with students in our 2 technology bachelor's programs. We have a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science. It's a very new program. We actually started that just 2 years ago. We're graduating our first cohort of students this spring. And then we also have a Bachelor's of Applied Science in Application Development. And that program we've had for a little bit longer, about 9 years at this point, I believe. So if you're interested after the event today in going into a career in like software development, coding, we have 2 programs here at North that you can pursue if you didn't know that we have one before. So I'm going to leave my card here at the front if you're interested in learning more about our programs. All of you should have received a folder, actually inside of your little bags. It has some flyers in it for you, showcasing both of our programs. But kind of like big picture overview of the 2 program options that we have. We have Bachelor's of Applied Science and Application Development, applied being the key word here. So if you're interested in primarily programming, coding, and that's it, and you want to build applications, that program is a great fit for students. It's more specialized in that way. But if you're interested in doing more, and you want to get into like the theory side, so you're interested in like theories, algorithms, management of information systems, and if you're interested in like becoming like a software engineer in the future, we do have a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science that you may be interested in. We're also wanting to announce that we are doing a data science track that we're hoping to launch this fall. So there will be a general CS track and a data science track. So data science, if you're interested in getting into like data science types of roles, like data scientist, data engineer, machine learning engineer, is a great option for you. But if you're not, it doesn't necessarily preclude you from going into just like more general software engineering types of roles. So if you're interested in learning more about all of our program offerings for bachelor programs, feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, you're so awesome, and we appreciate North Seattle College helping us host this event, giving us some space to use for this event. We do have 2 breakout rooms upstairs, so now that you guys have talked with each other a little bit, maybe formed some teams, made some bonds, hopefully made some friends. If at any point during our keynote speaker right now, or during the panels later, during lunch and all of that, if you guys get to a point where you're like, man, we really feel behind, we want to work more on our project or anything like that, upstairs we have 2 breakout rooms where you can talk quietly with your team and not have to be down here where all the noise is. But honestly, I highly suggest you stick around for all of the awesome speakers that we're going to have today. And then tomorrow is going to be more networking and hanging out with people from businesses and from navigators from programs at the schools and stuff. So also tomorrow's presentations and prizes. So awesome. Thank you so much, Jeff. And then we would love to welcome our keynote speaker, Dwight, up here. He's going to come and fill us with some awesome inspiration to kick this thing off and get our brains going.
Thank you so much. Before I get started, I promised Rico that I would mention there are also prizes tomorrow, right? All right. So, for those of you all who may not know me, my name is Dwight Jones. I have been to this college a lot of times, but today I'm going to be talking about how you can influence the future of AI. And so I'm going to be telling about my story. Many of you all may not know me, but you will know me by the end of this presentation. And I call it from slavery to AI, basically, right? And then I will talk to you a little bit about AI is here. Hey, can you help me a little bit and slide this up a little bit so I can see my notes?
Table right here?
Yeah, just slide it forward. There you go. And can you see it? All right, thank you so much. And then I am going to empower you all and give you all some suggestions on how do you plug into the AI journey that is coming forward now. So my story is, I've been in technology for 38 years, believe it or not. I have delivered and pioneered a lot of firsts in tech, both outside of where I work today. Today, actually, May will be my 21st year at Microsoft, where I've also pioneered a lot of technical firsts. And what I love to do, I love to reach back to our community. So there is a huge digital divide for underrepresented people in technology, and the digital divide is my enemy, right? And because technical innovation comes from so many, and I want as many people as I can to realize how technology has changed the paradigm of my life. So my story, I'm just going to give a little spoiler alert here. Not only do I work for Microsoft, but today my wife and 4 of my children are also Microsoft full-time employees. So what I'm giving you today is valuable, and I bring as many people as I can into the technology journey. That picture at the bottom left, if you look really closely, there are people from North Seattle College in that picture. And I'm also the president of Data Platform and Growth, which is my team, the Blacks at Microsoft Employee Resource Group. And one of the things we do is every month we bring college students from local Seattle colleges, and that's how most of you all know me, that I want you to see people from underrepresented communities in positions in technology so you can see yourself there, because like I said, the digital divide is my enemy. Now, I've written a couple of books, and one of the books that I'm going to be showcasing and selling, and I know many of you already have copies, is A Black Journey in Tech, where I share my stories, my lessons learned on how to get in technology. And the interesting thing is I wrote the book to be consumable from 4th grade to a 50-year-old. But if you see many of the reviews, that was just a review that was put out. Microsoft employees are actually getting promoted from my 38 years of lessons learned. So if it can help them, it surely can help those that are looking to pursue technical degrees. So, and I've traveled the world on behalf of Microsoft. So this is a little bit of the minutia in terms of, some of the things that I've led or brought forward. I'm not going to drain this slide, but the bottom line is that I'm old and I've done a lot of stuff, and a lot of technology that started out working on, it doesn't even exist anymore. So, and I work for, the group that I work for is Microsoft Digital. And Microsoft Digital is what used to be Microsoft IT. And we basically empower the user experience across all of Microsoft technologies, whether it's M365, what the things we do from an Azure perspective, or any of our first line products. And so, I just want to give you kind of a view of our landscape and the landscape that I support. We have, nearly 225,000 users that are Microsoft employees, plus another 100,000 plus that are vendors. We have that global footprint, and we have to just support the end user experience. And what I like to say is that we build tomorrow today, because a lot of the things that we are working on now, we operationalize so they become products going forward. So the things that I'm telling you about and the things that I'm leading today are things that we're going to be working on in the future. And I've been with Microsoft, and I've been in technology even before the journey. And when we were on premise and only had a couple of data centers in Tukwila and in Silicon Valley and then in Dublin, Ireland. And those are our only data centers before we transitioned to the cloud. And I used to work in those data centers, and so we've been on this journey to the cloud and then the digital transformation and taking us all the way through AI. And a lot of those I've led. I've led our journey, taking our users from corp to cloud to the launch of Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams. To just being a part of that. Before, when I started Microsoft, I was a network engineer, so I implemented the first network automation tool that Microsoft ever used that implemented changes globally that now Hewlett-Packard owns. It's called HP Network Automation. And so from my Microsoft journey to what I do more from my outreach, the name of my company is the Yahweh Group. Because, I believe in God. I believe God is love, and through His love, I want to reach out to the community and share what He's done for me. Because my story is one of, hey, I come from a place where there was not much expected of me. And matter of fact, if you read my book, you'll know that my high school guidance counselor told me that I would be dead or in jail by 21. And I found tech, and I got through tech through non-traditional routes, through certifications and becoming experts in technology. And so the vision of my company is simply this. I hate the digital divide. I believe it's a false narrative, and I'm going to do everything I can to close it and to make sure that people that look like me, that are from disadvantaged communities, have the opportunity to enter into tech. And I do this through education, through outreach, and then I'm adding consulting services because I want to build pipelines for our community to be able to fast track. And you all are part of the process, right? Reaching out to you all and making sure that you can see yourself. Many of the people in this room had never been to Microsoft campus until I invited them on a field trip there, right? And so I want people here to know that Microsoft is in your backyard, and we'll be talking about a little bit later that, hey, Satya Nadella went to India to say that, hey, we need 2 million people for AI initiatives. When you got Microsoft here in your backyard, you see the condos that they're building here, the campus of the future. I want you all, every person in this room, I don't care white, black, or indifferent, to take advantage of the opportunity that is here for you in tech. And so, like I said, I do a lot of outreach, a lot of keynote speaking, anything I can do to share the goodness of technology and what it has done to change the paradigm of my life. Like I said, there was not much expected from me. I'm from Atlanta. I'm from the darkest places, right? My family, I'm very proud of my family. I'm from a military family, a blue collar family, the hardest, working portion of our society. But unfortunately, the blue collar is being left out of what's happening in this technical paradigm. And so you all are going to have to take the pivot. Our next generations are going to have to take the pivot to become technical. So these are just a few of the pictures of, some of the things I do. Black History Month. I speak a lot at Redmond high schools, here at the college campuses, at churches, anywhere I can get my message out to share the value and benefit that technology has to offer to the next generation. And once again, here's just a picture of me meeting with college students from the Europe program. Now, I'm being asked to speak to the graduating class of NSB at UW. So the message is getting out, but I want the message to get out broader, that there's so much opportunity in tech, and that I want you all to see yourselves in some of those roles that are coming. These are just more pictures of some of the outreach that I do. And, I talked to you about the book that I wrote, A Black Journey in Tech. I published it in 2022, and it's all about me sharing my story from humble beginnings, and it's meant to encourage and inspire the next generation of technologists. I want you all to know that, God is not a respected person. If he was able to take this person who was supposed to be dead or in jail by 21, if you don't know my story, my wife and I, I dropped out of college, right? I didn't finish my degree. My wife and I married at 21, and before I was 32, we had 6 kids, right? And so, coming from very humble beginnings, all the odds were stacked against me. But I found technology in college, right? That was a 2-year program that Georgia State offered, and it changed the paradigm of my life. And I went from, the expectations of blue collar, and I've had my ups and downs, and your technical journey is not going to be a straight line, right? I've been in it for 38 years. It's not going to be a straight line, and where you start today is not going to be where you end up. The technology that you're working on today is going to be different 38 years from now. My first job, I was so happy to be in tech. I got promoted 4 times in 5 years, and I became the head of computer operations at that technology company. But guess what? There is no more computer operations. So I wrote this book. It shares my story. It has my lessons learned. What's very interesting is that my book now is being taught. One of my classmates, who is a PhD in education, she read my book and she said, "White, we got to get this in schools." So there are Common Core standard-based educational content. My book is being taught across the U.S. in STEM education from 4th grade through 12th grade, and there's also adult learning programs. And I would love to see it actually, make it into, this school and every school. And I believe actually my book, and there's another book, it's called The Power of Choice, by Michael C. Heiter. Those 2 books, if you are new in tech and if you're trying to make your way in tech, I believe are the top 2 books that I would refer to help you sustain. Because, one of the challenges that you have is that once you get your degree, and even your first, once you get your degree, it's going to be a challenge to get your first job, right? But once you get your first job, then you're going to be trying to figure out, how do I sustain in tech? And what I was seeing in my community was that people that graduated that I knew with honors from UGA or Georgia State or even Georgia Tech would get jobs in tech, but they would only last about a year, and then they would revert back to doing something blue collar, because tech is very interesting, because you have to be a lifelong learner, and you have to go in with your eyes wide open to that, right? If you are, and how's my audio coming through? Is everything fine? You have to be a lifelong learner in tech. It's different. If you want to be a pharmacist, you can be a pharmacist and you'll be putting pills in a bottle, 30 years from now, right? But in tech, when I started off in mainframe computer operations, there is no more mainframe computer operations. So you have to have that lifelong learner mentality when you approach tech. You have to know that, hey, I may have my degree as a SWE or a software engineer, but I may need to pivot to remain relevant in tech. And so my second book is to my son. My son, Dean, has autism, and he also works at Microsoft. Like I said, 4 of my 6 children are full-time employees at Microsoft.
So Dean, Dean did it. His sisters used to say when something would break, Dean did it, right? But it turned into, before we even diagnosed, we didn't even know what was going on with them, right? So I wrote this book to children and parents of children that are different or feel different, right? And don't understand why am I like I am, or why do I feel this way? Because Dean, he flipped it on us. It went from Dean did it to Dean did it. Dean went to state in football and in wrestling. When Dean was about 8 years old and I was mowing the lawn in Georgia, he said, "Daddy, I'm going to learn Japanese and be a CEO." I was like, first of all, I'm from Southwest Atlanta. There are no Asian people there. I'm like, Dean, we don't know anyone that know Japanese, right? But the way that the good Lord has things for you, we moved out here in Bellevue College, had a Japanese program. Dean took Japanese all the way through high school, and he graduated from Central Washington with a Japanese degree. He got selected to move to Kyoto, Japan for a year, and graduated from Kyoto University of Foreign Studies. And he had never spoken. And here's a child with autism is like this. My son never spoke a word of Japanese to me. I said I cannot let him go to Japan with autism and not see if he can survive there. And so we flew to Japan. When he got off the airplane, someone came to interview my son, just asking people why are they there in Japan. And he spoke fluent Japanese, so I said, okay, he'll be all right. And I was okay going back home on the plane. But like I said, he graduated with a Japanese degree. He came back. He did Europe and got his, graduated from Europe with a sequel DBA. He did an internship at Microsoft, and he got hired at Microsoft, right? So he he made it in Officers Candidate School in the Army National Guard, for Washington, So it's like Dean did it. He can do anything that he wants to do. He has his own condo, and if you ask him, he did it all on his own. But Dean did it. So that's my second book. And then I'm making a movie, right? And you all have heard the song "Put 5 on It," right? So you never heard "Put 5 on It"?
I got
I got 5 on it. Okay. We got one holy guy in this room, so thank you for being that. But so I'm crowdsourcing. I'm telling my story from slavery, and I'm going to go into my story just a bit here, and I'm going to have some little QR codes. I know it's y'all college students, whatever, but I'm crowdsourcing this movie to tell my story. And if you think it's of value, put 5 on it. And if you can put more, please do. Trying to get this movie produced, telling my story from slavery to where I am now, because it's been my life is the things that I've seen in my life, and we're going to talk about it in just a bit. My grandfather, who died, he was 103 years old. He was born on the Jones Plantation in Staunton, Virginia. And what's interesting is that I got to know my grandfather alive, and to see someone that was born is post-emancipation proclamation, but he still was a slave on that plantation, and what our family went through, to see him and to now working for the #1 company in history. Microsoft is now a $3.11 trillion company, and that journey, and the reason I'm trying to tell the story is I want to reach, put anyone in this picture, that comes from struggle, that doesn't know why they're in school, that's me, or that young lady who doesn't realize the challenges that women have in the workplace. I want my story to reach the masses, and that's why I'm creating that movie. So, real quickly, just to share my story, the oldest representation that I have in my U.S. history is of my great-grandfather, and we don't even know his name, but we know that he was a man of color.
and he fought in the Spanish-American War. So he served this country in the military free of charge. He worked in the fields free of charge, right? His wife was a Cherokee Indian, and unfortunately, after the Spanish-American War, he was massacred in the Virginia persecution against slaves. Now, that last picture is just a depiction, because I don't know what my great-grandfather looked like, but in this picture, in the middle is my actual grandfather, Joe Jones, right? And he is who I remember, he was warm and loving, and he held me close, and I remember a car ride between my dad and my granddad, and just that sense of belonging. And my granddad, he was the one that was born in Staunton, Virginia. His mother and him, they had to escape to the South, because post-Emancipation Proclamation, slaves were being persecuted, right? They were being massacred. And his brother got hung in front of him. And so it's just it's very fortunate that I'm alive here to be able to tell their story. Now, my father, on the left, he is Joe Jones Jr., and he had a third-grade education, but he fought in World War II. He was a part of an all-black unit called the Red Ball Express that, fought under Dwight D. Eisenhower, where I get my name, Dwight D., to liberate France, right? And, he two things. He loved his country, and he loved, he loved driving trucks. And so my father, his story is that he needed what was called the Interstate Commerce Commission license, so he could take his trucks from coast to coast. And it's a license that, if he had been a white man, he would have been able to go to the local municipality and get it. But my dad was in the media. He was in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. Here is an article, a Negro denied his seventh appeal. His seventh appeal. How many of us would have quit after one or two times? Right? So, my father, on his seventh appeal, he found out that, he was bringing a load of watermelon from Florida to Georgia, and he found out that they had denied him his seventh appeal. And he took that truck, and he kept it on the road. He went past Georgia, and he took it all the way to the steps of the White House to meet with President Lyndon Johnson and have them inspect his truck, and he got his ICC license, right? So a couple of things that we learned there. We learned perseverance, and we learned the dedication that it's going to take for you to continue. And so my father died when I was 12 years old, but I had those seeds planted in me. And so my mother, who, she passed away in 2022, shortly after I wrote my books, but she was 96 years old, and she is who I got being a lifelong learner from. She read her Bible every day, and she was always curious, and she deposited that in me. Even though I don't have as much formal education, I remain curious, and I always want to learn what's new. And that's what it's going to take in tech, for you to be curious. And so I'm the eighth child of my mother and father. I have a huge family back in Atlanta that I'm very proud to be a part of. And this is my crew, right? You'll see, I think it's to your left, all 6 of my kids, and then my son-in-law, my 4 grandbabies, and my mother-in-law to the right. And so I said that I had an amazing journey, right? I've done a lot of technical firsts. And what I thought was the highlight of my career was in 2013, I won Microsoft IT's top award, right? And it was voted on by my peers. I was up against a huge initiative called China Go Big, and then a huge initiative out of India. And I led a program that did a whole security redesign across Microsoft. And I thought it was no way that I was going to win the award for this. So I was at the buffet table reloading my plate, and someone said, "White, you're on the stage," right? So So I had to turn my big self around and go on the stage, and I won the CIO award in 2013, which is, to me, thinking from where I come from and to winning one of the highest awards for Microsoft, I just have to really give God the glory, because I'm just so thankful for what he has deposited in me. But the same thing that he's deposited in me is in you, in terms of being curious and learning and being technologists, right? And so, but that was not the pinnacle. Like I said, today my wife and 4 of my 6 kids are Microsoft full-time employees, and that's hiring order. So I try to tell my wife, come on, work for Microsoft. Oh, it's boring, But my oldest daughter, so we're in higher order there. My oldest daughter, then my wife, then my youngest son, then that's Dean in the military uniform, and then my second oldest daughter. And 2 of my kids don't work in tech, but I'm proud of them. They are sustaining themselves, and so I'm thankful that all of my kids are grown and gone. So, and so, I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the false narrative, right? Of, and my lens is that African American lens, that black lens, right? And we're made to feel so small when, some of us have not even traveled out to the United States to understand how big Africa is, and that you can put Europe and China and the United States inside of Africa, right? We're made to feel so small, and that there are about 1.4 billion black people that are in this world, the same amount of people that there are in China and that are in India, if you take that global look at it. But we're made to feel like we're small and that we don't have a lot of value. And so, what I share, another thing that I share in the book is our contributions to technology, because, we can't even write on paper without inventions from Africa, because paper comes from papyrus and paper comes from Africa. The Pythagorean theorem, comes from Africa. There were 12 universities in Africa when there were 2 in Europe, right? So, it's a false narrative that technology doesn't come from black people. And, some of the things I share about in the book is that, hey, I was a Cisco certified internet networking expert, which is the top certification you can get in networking. And I never heard of Miriam Froke. And this lady invented voice over IP technology, the technology that allows us to do Zoom calls, that allows us to talk over cellular phones, that allows us to do Teams calls, right? Never heard of her, right? Some other people, Jerry Lawson, he did the first cartridge-based gaming system, right? I used to work in a game room coming out of in college, right? So where you put quarters in, but it was his innovation to say that, hey, we can play multiple games on a single console. And so there would not be an Xbox or Nintendo or any of those other companies without his ideation. Who else do we have here? Granville T. Woods. People don't even know that he is considered the father of both mechanical and electrical engineering, right? One of my favorite ones, and Marie Van Britten Brown, right? She was a nurse, and how many of us have Ring doorbells or ADT doorbells? Do we have Ring cameras? So she invented that technology in the 60s, the ability to have closed circuit TV or to be able to push a button to call the fire department. They're all using her patent today. And Eugene Russell, he invented there were cellular phones, there were analog cellular phones, but the ability to carry your phone and have a digital signal, he's the person that created the digital signal for cell phones. And a lot of people don't know that. And even Dr. James West, as we work on these microphones today, 90% of contemporary microphones that are in phones and PCs are from his patent. And so it's a false narrative that black people have not contributed to technology, and we're made to feel small, but that's just not the case, because
companies that are predominantly non-black have just chosen to kind of keep us in a very marginalized box. And so let's pivot. How many of us know how to hitch a horse? One person, two people know how to hitch a horse. 100 years ago, that's how everybody got to work. And people were saying, here's the Industrial Revolution. Here are cars. 100 years is not a long time. I'm almost 60. I've never, I've ridden a horse, but somebody else had to set him up for me, right? But 100 years is not a long time. And the reason I'm showing this video is that people are saying AI is going to have the same impact on our life as the horse and buggy. What people don't realize is that in 1915, there were 27 million horses. We use horses for everything. We use horses for transportation, to plow the fields, to, whatever. So 27 million horses. Then they were saying automobile is here, right? And roll it forward to 1960. How many horses do you think were left?
10%.
4 million. 4 million horses out of 27 million, because the horses, I guess they didn't adapt, right? They didn't, but it went to horsepower. So we're saying AI is here. And, the middle of this chart is saying that, hey, 65% of the jobs in Las Vegas are in jeopardy by 2035. We already know that AI is, can outplay us in games. It's smarter than doctors. It's creating medicines right now, right? And 50% of the jobs in the U.S. are in jeopardy in the next 20 years. And that bottom chart, I know it's kind of an eye chart, but look at the bottom right there. You see in blue the jobs that are done by humans today, and the chart below is showing ones that are in jeopardy. Now, Bill Gates says it this way, and I'm not going to be able to read this chart here, but at the end of the day, I'll turn around on it, right? That, AI will replace some jobs, but AI will generate 97 million new roles. It won't take your job, but those people that use AI will take your jobs, right? And basically AI is here to assist. So I'm ready to pivot my talk in terms of my story. I talked to you about how I had to retool, and you all are going to get your degrees and whatever you get your degrees in, and I highly support that and encourage that. But you got to realize that this life is a journey. It's a marathon. It is not a sprint. And so I have had to retool myself many times. And I have a chapter in my book where I talk about, change, see the bigger picture. And there are two ways to handle change. You can let the change happen and then let it be a huge disruptor to your life through layoffs and things of that nature. And I've done that. I told you I got promoted 4 times in 5 years at my first company in tech. But once those layoffs happened and I knew the layoffs were coming, I didn't do anything about it. So I ended up washing cars, right? Because I knew how to do hood stuff, right? And I felt like an imposter in the workplace. And it took me a couple of years to get my legs back up under me to say, hey, I need to retool and get back in front of technology. So, I'm here saying that, hey, I've had to retool a lot of times. I became an expert in both Cisco and Microsoft technology. I did their whole triangle, and then I had to pivot to become a project manager. So I became an expert in multiple technologies. So I had to pivot over the years, and so that's my message to you all, is that you're going to have to be lifelong learners, and you're going to have to pivot as well. And you all see out there, and I know you're getting your degrees in a specific thing, but you need to know something about AI, right? There's so much free training out there. Hit me up on LinkedIn. This is from a post that I reposted on LinkedIn, that there's free certification training out there. I say add it to your toolkit, right? Make sure
that you know, and this is just how to get started. Learn something. Be able to talk about it in your next interview, whether you're talking about the cognitive abilities, large language models, you know, whatever. Be able to kind of talk the language, and that'll help you because it's here to add to your picture. And so I had to do what I'm telling you. The last program that I led was, you know, I led Microsoft Federal. So I built in Azure Government Community High Security Cloud an absolute replica of Microsoft to support U.S. government programs. And, you know, that program generates hundreds of billions of dollars for Microsoft. But I saw that AI was coming. So what I did was I made sure there was training that was available. I did the beginning, the intermediate, and the advanced level. I passed the certification courses that were available at the time. And so I know that at 58 years old, I have to be the change that I want to see. And as a result, I'm leading 2 AI initiatives right now for Microsoft. So, and working on a 3rd. So I'm not telling you something that I don't do myself. And the next portion of my talk is inclusiveness and why it's so important for underrepresented communities to lean into AI, right? And why it's so important for you to learn and be a part of the bigger picture. And inclusiveness, and you know, Microsoft has what we call these 6 principles of responsible AI. And it's all about making sure that there's fairness and equality in AI. And we're at the early parts of this, right? And inclusiveness are basically the guardrails for overrepresentation and underrepresentation. And I'm going to show you an example of what overrepresentation and underrepresentation looks like. We know that AI is data-driven, but if the data isn't there, it's not going to tell the right story. And part of the problem, like if I were to query AI and say, hey, show me a picture of a doctor, right? It's probably going to find someone that is a white person, right? And it's going to have negative stereotypes for people that are black because it's data driven. And here's an example of, you know, like Microsoft, we are the powerhouse, right? We can find anything on the internet telling us how we are the #1 company in the world. You know, 3.1 trillion. You know, we have reached historic bounds for company. Satya is the best CEO in the world. We can find plenty of data out there. But, you know, one of the things that you find is that, and so we can overrepresent that message. But I took this experiment, and because, you know, last year Microsoft laid off 25,000 employees. And I queried Bing AI and said, hey, you know, what about the people that were laid off? Can you find any articles that are telling that story? And Bing AI, quote, I'm going to quote it, it is possible that these layoffs impacted employee morale and job security at Microsoft. However, I could not find any articles directly linked to these layoffs to employee satisfaction. So we can overrepresent our goodness while those that are minimalized or marginalized are left out. And if we aren't careful, that is what's going to perpetuate into AI, and it's going to marginalize, and it's going to extend that digital divide. So it is important that unassimilated voices, you know, lean in to make sure that you are visible in the world of AI. And, you know, my last 2 slides, right, are my call to action slide. And this is where I'm saying it's important for marginalized communities to lean in and lead with the pivot of AI. Be the change that you want to see. Make sure that you're taking advantage of any of the trainings that are available, because the pivot of AI is coming, right? Just like the automobile and self-driving cars. And you realize that you're not just doing it for you. When I was in tech, I thought it was just for me, but I've changed my legacy for my family. So you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for your children and your children's children, right? To make sure that they're relevant. You know, make sure that you're taking advantage of the training
understanding the overrepresentation and underrepresentation of data. If we don't lean in and raise our hands when we're not being represented, making sure that we're in the data, then we're going to be left out. We're going to be marginalized, right? And then, for marginalized groups, we need to come together, right? There's so much divisiveness around, even black, white, whatever, right? We need to come together to impact the narrative of AI. And then start taking on AI jobs, right? Realize, hey, you may be in school for data science, but AI is the wave. Ride the waves. If you haven't learned anything from my story, it's that I rode the next wave in technology to get me to the next place. I had to pivot from mainframe computer operations to networking, to becoming an expert in Microsoft technology, to PMing, to AI, right? Whatever that wave is, and that AI wave will take you probably the next 20, 30 years into the future, right? And, this slide here, the pictures here are from, a month or so ago. And I talk about how Satya went over to India to say, hey, and talking to the Secretary of Education, that we need 2 million folks from India for AI opportunities that Microsoft is going to be bringing, right? And, the challenge that I have is that he didn't come to North Seattle College, right? He didn't come to places where there's already underrepresentation, right? And this article here from the mayor of the city of Atlanta, last month I was there in NSC, well, actually 2 weeks ago, at National Society of Black Engineers, over 20,000 engineers looking for jobs, right? And Microsoft, I guess, had made a pledge to Atlanta to bring 15,000 jobs, for underrepresented communities. And the mayor is calling out Microsoft and saying, hey, where are those 15,000 jobs you promised? So the Empower can I'm not going to say, the way I would say it is that Satya is holding the bar on that there are 2 million jobs that are coming. We should be competing for those jobs, right? He can come to North Seattle College, he can come to Green River, and we can find people that are just as valuable to take on those jobs. But it doesn't appear anyone is going to be coming for us. And so you're going to have to be like my dad. You're going to have to fight for it a little bit. But those jobs are coming. They're building those condos here. And I want you to be that change that you want to see. And then the last thing, help me to share my message. Help me get my message out. I think my book should be in your bookstore. I think my book should be in some of your classrooms. I think that if you can put 5 on my movie, do it. So, that's my talk for today. And I just thank you for my time, and I'm happy to be here. I'm going to be setting up a table where I'll be selling books and happy to sign and to have further conversations. So thank you for the time today.
Did you want to do any Q&A? I'm happy to answer questions if people.
Yeah, I should go.
Okay. Any questions or anybody has anything they want to add to that? Go ahead.
How do you decide which wave to ride?
How do I what?
How do you decide to ride which wave?
That's a good question, right? His question was, how do you decide which wave to ride? And the way I talk about technology is like this. Are you familiar with Baskin Robbins? Baskin Robbins is 31 flavors, right? And you hear security, you hear data science, you hear SWE, hear PMing, right? You hear in technology, every 3 to 6 months you're going to hear something new, right? It was easier for me because I wasn't as talented as you guys, and I grew up poor, right? So, which may be the case for some people in here, but I only had, I grew up only having Neapolitan ice cream. They would say, do you want chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry? So my choices were limited, right? So I stuck with vanilla, still love vanilla. But, there is no right answer to that, but what I talk about is slow cooking, right? Give yourself, if you're going to pick a wave, pick something that you know will take you forward, right? And slow cook, right? Don't be the person that's, hey, I'm working on this today. 3 months from now, I need to switch. You can learn about it all. Like what I'm telling you is to learn about AI. I'm not telling you to necessarily switch, to AI 100%, even though that would carry you. But, in my opinion, you pick something, you learn it, you become an expert at it, and then you're going to find out what you like to do and what you don't like to do. I'm a firm believer in finding your strength and your talent and letting that carry you the rest of the way. And there's a book that I recommend in my resources. It's called Strength Finders. Strength Finders will help you find what you're good at and what you're strong at. And it's built on this premise. I don't know if any of you all know this movie Rudy, but there's a movie called Rudy, and it's about this guy who was on the practice squad for this, I think, Notre Dame football team. And the whole premise of the book is how this guy went through 4 years of college on the practice squad to play in like one game. And so his weakness was football, but he was so determined that he kept working on his weakness, and he got one game, and I guess he got a movie out of it, right? But what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Strength Finders is about finding your gift, your calling. When I got my hands on technology, I found my gift. I found my strength, right? And you build from that strength, and you let it carry you to that next place. Another part of that is the industry is going to tell you what to do. You'll see when the wave that you're riding is about to hit shore. Make sure you stay curious and you become that lifelong learner, and you're looking for that next wave. Don't let that wave hit shore and drop you off in the sand while other people are riding the next wave. Was that helpful? Yes, sir, in the back.
If I may, I tell you a story about how I found a way. And it was just serendipitous. It was at an interview, and I was interviewing with a partner of the firm on an architect. This is in the mid-'80s, and he started talking about computer technology. Technology was going to radically change the design of this. And I'm also a person that is technically oriented. For instance, my daughter is a software developer for a major social media company. So I focused on that. And it took me, it provided opportunities for me within my.
It changed the paradigm of your life, didn't it?
Yeah, well, for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then it kind of had run its course. But then I looked out there and I saw, this was an architectural firm, I saw the construction industry
Yeah.
was now ripe for adopting this technology. I switched over to a construction company and I helped them build their technology. So that's basically how you can leverage your experience in one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if those didn't hear that he had to pivot, but he took what he learned to help him pivot to the next place. Another part of that story that I would like to talk about, and I share about it in my book. When I first started at Microsoft, the people at Redmond, they didn't know anything about tech and what was coming on. But I would meet people, they would say, you see that receptionist, she's worth millions, right? Or this guy who started shrink wrapping software, putting CDs in a box, became a technology manager and worth millions, right? If we can do it, you can do it, right? And that's the message that I want you all to get. Technology will change. You're going to be challenged. Getting into Microsoft is a numbers game because everyone's trying to get into it. it's gonna take some perseverance. It's gonna take some, some fortune, some whatever, right? But you can do it, and that's the message that I want to leave you all with.
And I would just add that I'm a continuous learner, and if I had continued to stay up to date on technology being used, this is
You wouldn't be in this room if you weren't a continuous learner, so I already know that. And that's it. Any other questions? And I'll go ahead.
So you mentioned how you grew up from a family that was poor and stuff, and your grandfather and stuff like that fight for surviving and stuff.
Yep.
With you working at Microsoft and growing up poor and stuff, how did you deal with that imposter syndrome? I don't really insert it here because me, I have a cousin.
Yeah.
She's the same age as I am.
Yep.
Same with people at school as I am.
Yep.
The difference is she's a doctor and she works every day.
Yep.
And I'm here,
Yep. I mean,
strive to work at Microsoft just as you. So
yeah.
how should you deal with that imposter syndrome?
I still deal with it, right? I still deal with it every day. In most cases, I'm the only, black person in the room. Most people don't know, who I am and what I've done. And if you ever see me on a Zoom call, I have a whole shelf of all my awards and things that I've dealt with. And people think that I'm doing that kind of to boast. I have to remind myself that, hey, I've been brought this far. I can go the rest of the way. And someone has to be the first to get their family out the ditch, right? And so you got to realize that the mission that you on is bigger than you, right? And things were happening. I lost my best friend at 26 years old. The hood stuff was happening around me. I even lost my great nephew when I was writing the book. Who lost his life. Trying to steal 2 dolls, a ball, and some Captain Crunch for his girlfriend's, daughter to have a good Christmas, right? And he had a firearm and lost his life in Walmart. So, I come from, that stuff is all around me and tries to pull me back. But I realize that I'm on a mission. My purpose is bigger than me. And when I start seeing my kids, who none of them wanted to be in tech, but when they start reverting back to tech and seeing that, hey, dad could do it, they could do it too, and so you got to realize that your purpose is bigger. And then you got to look to people like me, right, and that are telling you that you belong, that you can do it, that I want to see you go further than I've ever dreamed in tech. And so you stay positive, you stay with that positive message and realize that, there are going to be times you feel like an imposter in the room. When I went back to Atlanta, it's interesting, last week I had over 120 students from local colleges come visit me at Microsoft from this area. I took the same people that I had at Microsoft to my community, to my hood, and we only had like 20 people show up. I'm bringing, for the same message. So some people in the community is not going to be ready for your message, but you get to where you need to be, and you don't worry about those that try to knock you down. One last thing, and it's in the book. I do a talk on leadership, right? And it's called Lead, Led, Led. And it's a play on the word lead, right? And where leadership can come from people that got big mouths and that are talking and that are out front like I'm doing right now. And then there's a portion of leadership that's about teaming, and I know you guys are about to do a lot of teaming right now. But then there's the last part that I call led, and led is like a big baby that's in the room and that's not contributing. At Microsoft, we don't care about how many degrees you have or anything like that, but you have to stay leaned in. And you're going to be in rooms sometime where people are going to talk over you, talk around you. Communities are going to come together and, speak in different languages, right, that you don't even understand, right? And all of that will make you want to lean back but you have to stay leaned in, even in those rooms, right? And the last thing you can do is let all of that make you feel like you don't belong. And so I talk a lot about that imposter syndrome in the book as well. So. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so we're talking about waves, our waves like,
I can't hear you. Just louder.
We're talking about waves, right? And struggle that I have with mental health. And
Mm-hmm.
what I want to do is focus on the empowering and not showing shame
Yeah.
and like breaking the stigma of mental health, right?
Yeah.
But like through AI, I don't know how to do that. That's
Yeah.
why I want to go through the business way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you were talking about we should find a way in AI to use it because it's the future, right?
Yeah.
So how like do I go about that? Like,
Yeah.
do I
Okay.
where do I start in the AI way?
Yep.
You know.
Take out a blank sheet of paper and start writing your vision out, because it hasn't been created yet. And you're the one that's thinking about it. It's a gap area, and it may be something that you want to lead. I don't know if you heard the part of the conversation where I said, my son has autism. He works at Microsoft, right? So right now, AI is in its infancy, and it actually when we met with college students, who was there last Friday? Was any of you all there last Friday when I brought Microsofties there? You were there, right? So one of the young people said, "Hey, what is Microsoft doing for AI to bring in underrepresented communities?" We didn't have an answer, right? I'm sharing, and I shared in that last slide. Let's see. I shared that there's an overrepresentation of those that are empowered, those empowered messages. I would start, hey, if there is an accessibility program that you're a part of here at this school, I would start asking questions. Hey, what are we doing to make sure that mental health is being addressed with AI? And see, all AI is a technology that will help you. Let's see if I think I have a slide in the appendix here that kind of talks about what AI really does. Is this a slide? I don't think I added it to this deck, but I have a slide that talks about all AI does is allows you, instead of starting at 0, you could use Copilot to say, AI, how can I take mental health challenges and promote them in AI? So it gives you a better starting. Instead of starting with that blank sheet of paper, you can start with step 1. And then at the end of it, it can give you something that's even more polished to deliver. So I think you use AI to kind of ask the question, 1, 2, you make sure that from, whatever support that you have here in the school, that you're asking the question, what is AI doing? Ask me the question on LinkedIn. Ask Microsoft, what are you doing to make sure? And that's the whole thing that I'm talking about, that unassimilated voices, we need to make sure that we're standing up and being heard. And so I applaud you, because asking that question is the first step in doing that. But my point is that we're so early on that those questions haven't even been asked. You may be the first one to ask the question, but we got to make sure that it makes it into the data so that we're addressing it. Thank you. All right, let me step off here, or I can talk all day if you don't have notice.
I'd actually love it if you could. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Can we get another round of applause for Dwight? So I just wanted to come up here and just make sure that everyone got a tote bag. You'll find in your tote bag we have this pamphlet. This pamphlet will have a rough itinerary of both today and tomorrow. And so right now, actually, we are supposed to be getting into teams and having you guys do a little bit of networking on your own. Just it doesn't have to be anything solid. Find people you want to work with. Definitely talk a lot. And then actually on the back of this, there's this QR code you can scan. It will take you to the website with the problems. And from there, just pick whatever one you want. If you guys have trouble getting to it or need the link, it's on the club website that's on the back of the pamphlet. And if you have any questions, just reach out to anyone with a red name tag and we should be able to help you out. All right? With that being said, enjoy the hack. If you don't have a pamphlet in your